Welcome to Talking Event Driven, the podcast about the world of event-driven architecture. You will hear seasoned professionals sharing invaluable insights about their challenges and experiences in event-driven architecture.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. Today we'll be talking about platform engineering. I have with me today Jose Manuel. He's the platform director for Kafka at Adidas. And Jose, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure spending time with you in your new podcast. And, I only expect to be up to the expectations, at least at minimum level compared to my predecessors in the adventure, because I know some of them, and some of the previous episodes were really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. So, about myself, my name is Jose Manuel, and I work for Adidas. I joined the company like 8 years ago. Been working in IT for around now 21 years already, so I'm quite old. I'm married. I have a son that covers basically the rest of my life. Big sports lover, especially basketball. So, and if you want to talk with other topic with me, it could be probably NBA or football. Apart from other interests like video games, reading, and regular stuff like series, movies, etc. That's a little bit of me.
Yeah, interesting history. Lots of experience in the entire platform and then IT space. Then, maybe as a follow-up question, then, how did you first get exposed to event-driven architectures and Kafka by extension?
Okay. Actually, it was the first project that I was involved when I joined Adidas. It was a project called Business Activity Monitor, or BAM, that we like to call it internally. Yeah, we are big fans of acronyms in the company. So
do you design the acronyms first, or do you design the name first and think of the acronym afterwards?
I wish I know, but it's like a joke that everybody is named after a 3-word acronym, and you really need to have a very big cheat sheet to understand what every single thing means. And there are things that are named the same. So yeah, it's kind of weird, but it's our weirdness that we live happy with that. So about this project, it was a super interesting and demanding project. Back in the day, it used Kafka as a core for event managing distribution. And it combined other technologies such as Apache Storm, obviously to message and implement stream processing with the events coming from many different systems. It was a very interesting pattern because it was a composition pattern. And the most challenging part was that, as you can imagine, if you are receiving events from many different systems, the probability of receiving events out of order or having entities incomplete was super high. So we used Storm to create the composition of the entities and aggregate them, and then finally drop in the information to create kind of not actually a projection, but the final visualization in not OpenSearch at the time, but Elasticsearch, and then using not Kibana for consulting the data, but custom UI to represent the status of the different entities altogether, right? So it was like a end-to-end observability solution for business activity in the company. It's kind of doing a little bit of brain archaeology, but everything was built using Docker, and the deployment model and the solution was based with a bunch of bash scripts and so on, running on virtual machines, everything internal on-prem. So it was far away from where we are now, no Kubernetes, no cloud yet. But it gave me the opportunity to learn a lot of things about the complexities of distributed systems. I already had previous experience with distributed systems, but in this case, it was a solution quite difficult and complex in the conception. And that was actually my first, interaction with Kafka as a technology. And I can say that I partially fall in love with it because that was when I realized the different capabilities of such a technology, and the different use cases that you can really implement. And also one thing that I really like is the simplicity of the technology, because I like to say at the end of the day, Kafka is very stupid. It's just simply byte in, byte out. Yes, there are so many things around Kafka, what I usually call, peripherals around the core technology that helps you build different things better, such as Kafka Connect, or Kafka Streams, or Flink, or any other stream processing technology. But Kafka is very simple, and it's really that's part of the beauty of the technology, right?
Yeah, there's elegance and simplicity. It's I think the official name is dumb pipes and smart endpoints. That's what they usually call it. But yes, it's definitely a nice upside of Kafka. Yeah. All right. So the initial phases, let's just say, that was more or less experimental with bash scripts there, some custom code there, some Storm there. So it's lots of things all over the place. And you then eventually started evolving that in a certain sense, making it more mature, let's just say. Or how do you go from there?
Yeah, it's actually part of the evolution of the. It's really close to the evolution of the department itself and the adoption of a strategy like platform engineering for the company, right? Why do I say that? Everything started like a single project, not intended to share the infrastructure with anyone else, right? But all of a sudden, when we started doing a small presentation and explaining the architecture that we have built, there were other teams interested also in adopting Kafka to implement event-driven solutions for their own, products and their own domains, right? And this is a very big company and a lot of complexities, and we find that initial amount of early adopters that approach us, and we saw the possibility of reusing what we have already built and making use of the base technology to serve several use cases, right? Obviously, that changed completely the game. It's a different beast. It has nothing to do running Kafka for one single project than compared to implementing any level of multi-tenancy, And why not? I mean, at the beginning, we were a little bit naive, We thought that, we don't really thought that this would become any bigger than that. But it did, it did.
There's also you're kind of hinting to the flip side of the coin of the simplicity of Kafka in that sense, because it's very usable in all kinds of ways and designs and so on for multiple applications, domain usages, and everything else. But that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges if you start to standardize it in an organization. What do we support and how do we support it? Because you cannot have a sort of a platform team that supports everything. Then it's just pure infra team. So how do you go about that and streamlining that in a certain sense?
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's even part of the platform engineering strategy and the thing that you expect from a platform team, right?
Yeah. Of course.
You're not really in a position to enforce anything. At least in our case, this is part of my experience. You are recommending, right? And you try to bring best of breed solutions and try to compose, a global solution that could be, it's at the end of the day, it will be opinionated. That's right. But you need to find the right level of flexibility in order to not be very strict and let really people use the technology as close to the core as possible, but still maintaining a certain level of governance on the things that you do, right? And this is always complex. Because Um, as you can imagine, if you don't restrict really, for example, the type of technologies that you use for implementing clients, we don't have any kind of restriction in terms of using only Java or only Go or any other programming language to implement your clients. If you don't do that, the possibility of implementing a wrapper on top of Kafka, it's out of the question, right? As well as enforcing the usage of schemas, for example, that becomes a best practice, but never an enforcement. So you need to deal with different teams, different maturities, and different speeds, you know? And it sometimes is very difficult to encompass everything and trying to, to serve your internal customers as the best you can, right? Because first of all, you don't have the possibility of understanding every single use case that is being built on top of the technology that you are maintaining. It's not possible. If you can try it, but you will be a big bottleneck if you try to be involved in every single decision made around the usage of a technology, especially because sometimes when people reach you out, in some cases it's too late because the decisions are already there. And you just simply need to accept that something has been done and they just simply want to use it. And you just simply need to try to, influence these decisions before, but it's very complex. It's very complex.
And if you go from the start and you have, like, say, the basic platform and you are building capabilities on top of it to support these use cases, do you have then like a sort of an agile approach to I'm going to go to my technology teams, I'm going to ask what they want to do, how they see it, and so on. So how do you prioritize that, and what you are supporting and what you are kind of letting flow freely?
Well, first of all, the capacity of our team it's certainly limited, and what we have implemented and it works pretty well is the concept of consultancy, right? Because apart from being simply the team that is doing the heavy lifting of complex technology such as Kafka, we also act as the center of excellence for stream processing, and streaming in general. So we have our door always open, and it requires also a little bit of, internal marketing with your existing customers to let them know that in case they need to build something that it's too complex or need a little bit of guidance, it's also possible to reach out to us and request this level of, engagement with this consultancy. And it works really well because this is also, even for the team, it's probably one of the most rewarding things that we do because it gives you the possibility of, thinking out of the box and seeing the big picture, because this is where you are really connected with the implementation of the use cases and where the decisions are made. And being, part of the decision sometimes is really, really, really interesting even for personal growth for the people in the team. Sometimes this consultancy is troubleshooting, and we accept that. We accept that because at the end of the day, this is where you are creating real impact. If someone is in need and you invest your time to help them build something better, it's making your own life easier in the near future. Because otherwise, there is going to be a problem that you will find down the line. Probably 2 a.m. with a call being paid during the weekend. Yes, that's right. That is right. Yeah. But if you are able to tackle those problems beforehand, is where you are really creating an impact, because you are making the life a little bit better, not only for you, but for everyone else involved in that particular use case.
Yeah. It also reduces the, how do you say that, the distance between you as a platform team and the use cases themselves. You know what's going on in the organization. You know what the issues could be, and you also know how to evolve your platform in that case.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it's an interesting way to not be the ivory tower platform.
You nailed it. And it's you know it's one of the risks when you implement this strategy. You become the expert and accessible with all the answers, right? And the final word for everything, right? And that's not realistic. And if you follow that path, you will finally hit a wall. And the wall could be really hard. Because basically, from my point of view, it drains your credibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you become an expert, but if you don't materialize your expertise into something tangible for product teams, what is the purpose?
Yeah. I always try to compare it to making a sort of a highway. You create a highway, you make it easy, you help them get on there, but you put some guardrails on. And if they want to drive in the potato field next to the highway, that's fine, but they will have less support in that capacity. That's kind of how I usually compare it.
It's a good one. I give you the car. You know that there is a speed limit. If you surpass the speed limit, you're fine. But you can still drive faster than you are supposed to, right? But again,
Yes.
It's also true that you need to protect yourself in some cases, right? And this is very related with the core of the multi-tenancy concept.
It's noisy neighbors, for example. Nobody likes those.
Exactly. We need to do a lot of effort to let people understand that this implementation of multi-tenancy for any particular technology, it's a commitment from both parts, right? It's a shared responsibility. And not only with us as the team managing the infrastructure in this case, but with other teams using the platform the right way, okay? And of course, there are some times where you detect some component, I want to use team, because nobody does it on purpose, but you detect some component that is misbehaving, right? We have certain mechanisms for detection first and to add in some guardrails to ourselves and for others. I'm talking about concepts like quotas, for example, and something like that. Not being very strict, because at the end of the day, the restrictions are soft restrictions, but at least something that could potentially stop you, right? And try to, at least maintain certain level of, stability in the system to let us take decisions and stop something or apply some extra restrictions in order to preserve, the stability and don't jeopardize a potential use case that could be affected, right? And sometimes happens, and the good thing is that as soon as you get in touch with the people that is provoking that issue, they are really open for implementing, counter measurements. For example, if someone is generating crazy amounts of data and start to, fill up the disk, you detect that, hey, what's going on here? Is this under control? Are you doing something wrong? Maybe your component is behaving the wrong way and duplicating messages, blah, blah, blah. Why don't we put byte-based restriction on your topic in order to preserve the size of the disk? Yeah, let's do it. Don't worry. It's okay. It's under control. You do it, you apply the measurement, done.
Yeah,
and you
constructive feedback, more like trust them to do the right thing and just help them if you spot things that might be out of the ordinary and so on. So it's more or less like trust but verify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Cool. You also mentioned that you don't do any wrapping of any sort, or so say, for example, topics and so on. But that also means that you need to really build the knowledge inside the teams on how to use the raw resources, more or less. Do you do that purely with consultancy, or do you have other approaches that you can get that knowledge there?
We invest quite a lot of time in doing trainings. Trainings that matter. What do I mean? There is a lot of material already available on the internet, not very difficult to find, with very good and competent courses and trainings about core Kafka capabilities, right? There's no point of doing our own internal course explaining how Kafka works. right? And how to implement a client on XYZ technology. That's, as I like to say, there's no honor there. But what we do is explaining how do we do things internally. What is different in Adidas compared to other companies, right? We have a very interesting and complete onboarding program for every new joiner in tech, and we participate in that. Okay, and fortunately, we had the possibility of using internal training platforms. I will try to skip the commercial name. No, but it's true, because the level of impact of this content is way bigger than doing face-to-face trainings. On the other hand, doing a face-to-face training, the benefit is obvious, is better, but this way you can maximize the material and the impact, because everyone can take it at their own pace, right? And it makes, following an online course.
It's a scale. It's a scale question. And if you go one by one, it's going to take you very long to get anything across. And you're really just explaining our way, more or less. And all the generic things, the technology things, you can get them everywhere on the internet or vendors or anywhere.
Exactly. Because, as an example, we use schema registry for holding schemas and so on. We have our own internal recommendations about what type of schemas are preferred for certain cases, not enforcing, but it's our own, opinionated approach for that. We explain that. We explain how to do things, how our operational model and how our automation works, because this is what you need to learn. For you, it's, working with the schemas is just a set of conventions about naming, and just, using it for committing your new schemas into your repo, you're done. This is what you need to learn. Okay. I don't want you to learn how the API, the REST API of the schema registry works if you're not going to interact with it directly. Okay. So this is what we consider custom or particular internal implementation, right? At the end of the day, you still need to know how to connect your client with the schema registry in order to, to publish the schema and to operate. But you also need to know that we don't accept the registration of schemas on the fly. And you need to pre-register the schema, because that is connected with a contract, and you need to do this and that. And this is the compatibility level that we set by default. You can do this and you cannot do that. Why? With this explanation, because of that. Because we want to protect the clients, and we have decided, okay, So that is what we consider internal. We create custom courses for that, and we also do, other training activations locally in person every now and then, not constantly, because we also need to acknowledge that we are not teachers, and we are technical people that has to teach others how to do things, but we are not experts, and that matters. That really matters, because, and this is where you really make the difference between what others more specialized in teaching are doing in online courses compared to what you're doing. And you try to do your best. Sometimes you do the right thing, sometimes you don't, but it's natural. We have limitations.
Yeah, of course. You, as a center of excellence, you're enabling others, so you're more there to help them in case you see things that could go the wrong way. The general knowledge you want to sort of get on the outside world and the true teachers, let's just say. So yeah, it's an interesting thought. And then practically you spend a lot of time with the teaching and the making the guidelines and so on, and maturing that, getting those across, the consulting. Do you then ever think that a platform in general is done? Or do you think, okay, we start with making a platform, some automations around that, and then we shift more to that excellence approach? Or does the platform still need a lot of work, in your opinion?
It's part of the journey. At the beginning, doing a little bit of history, first time that, we established the department around 2018. something like that. So we have been operating Kafka at scale for around 6 years, so to say. Okay, following the current model of multi-tenancy, platform engineering, and serving others, enabling others, all that stuff. So I still remember the first time that we went to Kafka Summit in London that day, that it was like shocking, because that time when it was when we realized how many things we were doing wrong. Okay, so it was like we were there 2 days and we fill up our backlog for what it appeared to be forever, but little by little we have been, implementing everything that we learn, right? And we keep learning. Okay, so the platform is in constant evolution. It's also true that most of the time, at least based on my experience, people don't expect from you new features, right? They expect stability. They expect resiliency. They expect as many nines, exactly, and as many nines as you can give them. No outages. That is right, and that is the reason why you start to think, okay, we have reached certain level of maturity in terms of how stable the platform is, in which environment do you want to run. We started on-prem, we switched to the cloud, we are running on cloud. You need to keep evolving about the different regions that you need to deploy your solution. Okay, fair enough. That is part of the evolution. And you keep moving small parts. Okay, this is a little bit obsolete. You deploy this as a replacement. Now it's big. Now it's better. You try to identify some problems with the team, and when something is bigger, okay, maybe you need to build something in order to make it, easier to interact with the platform for everyone. The operational part is also a big aspect of the evolution in our case for automation and self-service, trying to reduce the impact on people of operating and doing things manually to serve customers, for sure. But you start little by little incorporating these little things like trainings, improve observability. You start to make, and this is something that I like a lot, start treating your platform as a product. That requires marketing, that requires presentations, that requires not selling, because it's not purely selling, because you're not making money, so you don't really need to convince anyone. But in some cases you need to speak to colleagues and explain the benefits of using things one way compared to other alternative ways, right?
Yeah,
again, it's part of the evolution.
Yeah, so sort of a roadmap, some updates, what's new, so that kind of things you need in the platform then.
Yeah. For example, one of the things that I like a lot, and we are still struggling to incorporate, it's a DevRel strategy for the platform, right? Because for me, it's a way to change the message. It's, not being reactive, but proactively generating content, to pique the curiosity of the people about doing certain things. Because sometimes you invest time in building something new that is a benefit, but you struggle to get adoption in some cases. I understand the reasons. Everybody is very busy, and it's very difficult to incorporate more stuff that perhaps is not really perceived by the product owners as a big impact on their solutions, but it could be beneficial for the company, for some cost savings and so on, whatever, right? So sometimes you need to release something and do a little bit more, telling people with, how those videos, whatever you consider, with some activation, some actions, what is the right way to make good use of something that is already there, And this is something you need to be constantly doing, because, if you only do it one time, it's one message, you had one hit, one impact, but the people and the company evolves, right? And you need to be constantly constantly telling people that there is something that you can do, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So for that, I did that. Implementing DevRel techniques internally are very useful, you know?
Do you do that from the platform team then? Or because in a certain sense, you could also bring success stories about what you did for certain parts of the business, and they probably want to present that to the rest of the internal company as well. So do you collaborate on that, or how do you see that?
The problem is that if you do it at individual team level, for example, in our case, let's be honest, there are not so many of these things that you can do, right? Because your impact is limited. So my vision is that it's better to, implement your strategy at the higher level, probably at department level. So this way you can bring solution ideas, best practices, use cases, and success stories from different teams, and you can spread the word, from one central point of time, which is essentially the strategy that we are following right now. Doing, monthly demos where different teams come and show their novelties and newsletters and so on. Okay, there are still a lot of things that we can improve, for sure. As any other thing, because there are a lot of things that we do, and if you are not selected for this demo, for example, maybe next time you have better luck. But something that you can do, for example, would be, okay, let's record a video and let's create a stream of videos, internal stream of videos where everybody can just simply go and consume that content, even if it's not presented live,
Yeah, but get the story out of what you've done, how that could inspire them, and then they probably know internally who to talk to get some more information.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach because it's really, as you say, a product in that sense. You're showcasing what it can do and how it can be used. So it's an interesting thought. Yeah. Maybe another thing I wanted to shortly touch on then, if you say, for example, we're a product team, one of the key things often if you talk about products and product teams and everything else is how you tax your services to the rest of the organization who's using you. I'm calling it taxing, could be something else that you have in mind, but yeah, we have 6 people, we consult for other things, we run your platform. How do you go about defending your budget internally? I'll put it.
We are doing it. But I'm still not completely convinced that is the right way to do. And let me elaborate. It really depends on the level of enforcement that you apply to use that technology, right? For example, if everybody on a particular company, and it's not our case, if everybody is forced to use Kubernetes as the runtime, you have no option. You have to do it. So that becomes like light or water,
Yes.
It's part of your supplies. You need it. So I understand that there is a cost implication of running those technologies. If you do it yourself, you have support, you have anything. In our case, the same. There is infrastructure to pay, there is support teams, and all the time that we invest in building new things. There are so many things, licenses, everything. Okay, and you can put everything together and distribute the cost as we do. So, but if you are in a position where everybody is forced to use it, what is the point? Probably it's better just, okay, let's just simply make this something that the company has to accept as the base cost and don't overcomplicate things, right? If you are not really enforcing and you are letting people decide if they want to use this or that, that is a different story. the question that comes to my mind is, how much do you really need to distribute? Because all your codes has to be distributed. It depends. Okay? Because you are really creating an internal complexity of, in our case, it's recharges, right? And at the end of the day, at least maybe I'm a little bit naive about this, and there are some, financial implications, but it's left pocket, right pocket, right? If we are not making money, everything is part of the internal budget, and you record the budget, you have the money, and it has some implications, okay? Because if you start making those recharges, you need to do it the right way, because people need good data points in order to make the projections to request the budget for next year, okay? So
Yes.
to some extent, this process is creating more and more complexities for everyone, okay? That's my experience. On the other hand, I understand that there is a strong argument in favor of this model to control bad usage of resources, or to have house clean.
Yeah.
If you don't use it, if you don't need it, shut it down, and let's save some bucket. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's even on the level where you enforce it. Say, for example, Kubernetes as a platform for the entire organization. By redistributing the cost in a certain sense, you're also pushing back. Well, if the rest of the organization also runs as sort of products, so you say you have customer portal as a product, you also force back to them like, how efficient do we make this? Which technologies are we going to choose? If we choose something that's very inflexible, doesn't integrate well, and so on, we'll have to put a lot of anti-corruption stuff around it to have it sensibly run. For those cases, it would make sense because it puts the weight of the inflexibility and everything else in their part of the cost, while otherwise you're kind of hiding it. And that becomes even more apparent in my experience once you have choices. Say that you have, say for example, an event streaming platform like a Kafka, and you have an SNS situation next to that, and one is recharged and the other isn't. Then you're basically saying everyone to the other one, because that's not gonna cost you anything on your bottom line. So it's indeed a difficult discussion, but it's, in a certain sense, it's like running a government. You're taxing things.
Yeah, and it's what you see is very interesting, because, and it's a risk. If decision making is based on only money, and you select the technology based on the cost, that's a mistake.
Yeah,
from my point of view.
You're hindering innovation in some cases. Yeah,
exactly, and obviously, as you are partially hiding the complexity of particular technology to your internal customers or stakeholders, call it whatever you want. If the only thing they see is the cost, they lose the full picture. For example, you could be integrated with other systems in the company and implementing the right security mechanisms and measurements, putting your metrics and the logs in the central observability system, and this and this and this and that. But if you are only comparing, okay, this is how much you are costing versus a managed service like MSK, for example. In our case, you are way more expensive. Yeah, but you are losing a lot of stuff. You are losing the support, because if you run that, don't come to me and say, hey, I have a problem with this. Now it's your problem. Have fun. Okay? And I will be in a perfect position to say, no, I'm not running. This is your infra, right? And I say, on a scale of taking your example, SNS or SQS or any other, or Kinesis or any other thing, could do the same thing? Maybe no. Partially, maybe if it fits your case, fair enough, it's your decision. But if the decision-making process is based on technology facts and capabilities, fair enough. But if it's only money,
yeah,
that's scary.
It's comparing apples to pears in a certain sense. The
It is.
layering that you create on top of let's say a managed service or running it yourself, you need to compare the managed service to the pure infra and not everything else you put on top of it. But the same is sort of true for if you would do those recharges, you can also make them heavy on one or on the other side, because there's no easy way to just say like I'm going to distribute the cost of my Kafka. It could be producer heavy or consumer heavy, and depending on what you choose, you will sort of drive them in a certain direction. The same way, for example, if you currently buy an electric car, you might get some incentives there, and if you buy a diesel one, it's like a big hammer. You can do the same to a platform. So do you have any experience with that or thoughts on that?
Experience, no, because we don't apply restrictions. I mean, there are some inner restrictions based on common sense. Okay, let me put an example. If you have a team managing Kafka and you need to do Kafka, you don't run your own cluster. Can you do it? You are not limited not to do it. So you still have the possibility of go cowboy and deploy everything yourself. But I'd like to say that nobody is doing it. The same to other technologies, such as, for example, no, I don't care. I mean, if they do, it's their problem, and it is really their problem. They will find out sooner or later.
So they can't come knocking at you like, I want you to take over that cluster.
The problem is that we are always willing to help. So if anybody is doing it, we will probably still go and help them and try to make them aware that you have a problem here and there. Okay, but that's part of the job. No problem with that. But obviously, that applies to other technologies as well, right? The fact that you have the possibility of going to AWS and run a Kubernetes cluster doesn't mean that you have to do it because there's another team doing Kubernetes the right way. The right way is based on the standards defined by InfoSec, enterprise architecture, other departments in the company saying that this has to be done this way, right? Don't operate it yourself. There is no benefit in operating every single team, their whole technology stack.
Yeah, it's you put the groundwork, don't do it all over again, and if you do, you'll have to explain why very thoroughly. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I sense that there's some anecdotes there, but that's maybe for another time, unless you want to share one.
No, in this case, about costing and recharges and so on, that basically summarizes a little bit my experience in recharging, right? Because what we have done from quite a long time, it's being cost transparent. The implementation of cost transparency is one step. It's one part of the story. I can tell you how much it costs what you are doing. And that is good because this is something that I can do, okay, very easily. And what I can do, for example, is setting what the model that we are doing. Right now, we define a fixed fee, okay, common for everyone. And then it's based on usage, throughput. So we get the metrics. This is what you do. This is the cost. So one thing that we have been doing for quite a long time is explaining to people, hey, this is the implications of your usage. All right? Being transparent, cost transparency, that is fine. I'm a big fan of that. The implementation of recharges based on the same is what still makes me a little bit wary. Not really convinced about the full benefit for everyone. Because what I'm seeing right now, it's a lot of work. A lot of work for everyone. A lot of questions, a lot of pushback. And
you're more inclined to trust their common sense, that by making it transparent to them, they feel inclined like, okay, I want to do well for the company. I'm not going to blow up cost and hide everything. Yeah.
Especially because we have tried to be as lean as possible from day one. Only, reserving and using what is really needed. That requires, a lot of time, of course, and you need to really be very strict with yourself. Because if you don't have any kind of, I mean, we don't really have restrictions in terms of please don't deploy machines 4 times the size that you really need. I can do it. And for sure, I will be, purchasing, my own, how to say it. If I can have, instead of having a machine, an EC2 instance, with the right amount of resources, I can multiply that by 8 if I don't care about the money, and I will have ton amount of wasted resources. But I will be happily ever after, right? Because it's like, I don't care. I'm not running out of this. I'm not running out of memory or CPU or problems with the network. No, I'm overcommitting. I'm overpaying, right? So we have tried to be as lean as possible from the very beginning. And the customers, our customers, have earned our trust that they do the right thing, especially because whenever we detect something that is not done the right way, they react and they change, Not everyone.
Yeah.
Because we all have our own, circumstances, but they behave pretty well.
Yeah.
So
hence the transparency and you basically report what it costs, the utilization, and then you just talk to them in that sense. Yeah. It's a very elegant way. I like that. All right. I think we're closing on the end of our time. Maybe one final thought. How do you see this evolving into the future? Do you see big changes in the near future, or things that could have a large impact or something similar, or we'll just keep going as we do?
In which context?
Platform engineering in general, and how you run the platform and the team and so on. Or, for example, AI, will that have big impact, or something else in your peripheral?
We have a constant evolution. First of all, 2 things. First, platform engineering is a strategy. Okay, it's just a strategy. It's not a silver bullet. There are no silver bullets over here. It can work in certain scenarios, in certain companies, not in others. And it really depends on the size and the impact that you are creating, removing the complexity of running certain technologies and simplifying, doing the heavy lifting on a central team, right? That requires a mid-high size company in order to implement. So that is for sure. As a strategy, you're never done. It's a way of working, and a platform, by definition, a product by definition is never done. It keeps evolving. You add things, you remove things, you change things, right? Based on my current observation, what we are trying to do right now is to trying to widen a little bit the scope and not only dealing with streaming, because, and I mean, it's not a secret that the community in general, it's leaning toward extending Kafka in combination with other technologies. I like a lot the stack that Uber, for example, is doing for implementing real-time analytics, combining Kafka plus Flink plus Apache Pinot, but also requires, customer-facing applications that require real-time analytics. And we are still trying to figure out that kind of use cases, if it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, as an example. Also, I like a lot the evolution of the technology that we are seeing lately in the Kafka space, with more and more companies willing to transform a little bit the internal architecture, building solutions like WarpStream that are completely different based on, massive storage, cheap storage, and creating a lot of agents that are very lightweight, right? Perhaps it's a technology that it's, more appropriate to be called cloud native than Kafka, which is, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but internally it is not really cloud native. It has a strong dependency on having the disk close to the broker. Okay, that's the part. But also, we recently see the announcement of the release of version 3.9 with production readiness for tile storage, which is, wow, amazing. Finally it's here. Okay, now is the time to please everyone that is listening to me, adopt this version, move to Craft, and start thinking about a good implementation for tile storage, because you will save significant amount of money if you can reduce the disk, especially if you are doing cloud. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the technology is evolving, and we as a team are, constantly trying to make the solutions that we are running as aligned with the latest versions as possible, to adopt the novelties, and to also, make good use of these functionalities in order to make the life of our customers easier. Sometimes, almost everything that I have just explained, it will not be noticed by them, right? Because as one colleague told me the other day, for me, going with you and working with you is super fun, because Kafka is just a bunch of endpoints. I just connect, do whatever you do, and I don't care. It works. That is fine, cool. But there is a lot of things going under the hood. Yeah. So for you, it's just a bunch of the bootstrap servers. That is right, and you don't really care whether there is a zookeeper behind, or there is another kind of coordination based on graph running under the scenes. You don't care. But believe me, it's better for you to keep things this way, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting way you describe this, because in a certain sense you are also taking the responsibility as a platform team to follow what's moving in the space of the technologies that you're following. You're advocating them through what you said earlier with the advocacy, the webcasts, the sharing what you're doing, and at the same time you're evolving the platform to be more useful end to end. So in that sense, it's a perfect triangle that will never be done, and that you are constantly following that future path of the technologies you see.
Yeah. And sometimes we will do the right thing, sometimes we will bet on the right horses, and sometimes we will fail, but we will certainly learn.
Yeah, you can never know the future, so you can only have fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. That is granted. Having fun is part of the job. Otherwise, it will be really difficult for everyone to do this.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, unless you have anything else to share, I think we can close the call for today. Definitely a big thank you for being here. It was very interesting to have your insights and how you look at things. And we'll be in touch.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure. It's been, time has passed super fast. Maybe I can just simply finish with a small disclaimer. I'd like to say that, it's obvious, you can see by my clothes, that I work for Adidas, right? But I'm not acting here as an official representative of the company, right? It's not the official message of Adidas about anything. It's everything that I have been sharing is based on my experience and personal opinions, right? Which is cool, and it's something that I would like to share, because it's also fair with my employer to express this in this context. But again, thanks for having me. It's really, really, really interesting spending this time with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talking Event Driven. We hope you enjoyed the insights and stories shared by our incredible guests as much as we did. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Stay tuned for more enlightening conversations. Until next time, keep innovating and stay event-driven.